and give us.
Looks tasty. I will not be partaking, however.
Yeah. We are going to consider a substitute to House Resolution 1612. Mr. Teasman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Bring before you House Resolution 1612, which essentially urges the United States Senators Johnny Isakson and David Perdue. They've made some public statements after the passing of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito that they would prefer to hold off on considering a nomination, and this is just us as a House confirming that sense that we would like them to hold off for the rest of this year to consider a nominee for the United States Supreme Court that is not in line with Justice Scalia's judicial philosophy. The idea that Justice Scalia believed in originalism, and we want to encourage our senators to not confirm someone who doesn't share his judicial philosophy.
So your resolution is an urge.
That's correct.
All right. And do we have questions of any members of the committee? And Ms. Evans or Ms. Evans? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I take it from the resolution that you believe that the makeup of the court prior to Justice Scalia's passing was balanced in a way that you liked. You were happy with that balance.
Well, as a conservative, I probably would have liked it a little bit differently, but even more so. But I don't understand what I want is not as relevant on the what I thought of the current judicial makeup. Help me understand your question.
On lines 12 and 13, it says, whereas in order to maintain a balance on the Supreme Court, the successor to Justice Scalia should be someone with similar views and philosophy to maintain the balance. So that's a goal. So
it's a more balanced court, yes.
If Justice Ginsburg were to unfortunately pass, would you also urge us to maintain a balance by appointing someone that shared her judicial philosophy?
I can speak to what I think on that, and then I don't think this resolution speaks to that issue. But how I personally feel on that is if Justice Ginsburg were to retire, then I personally don't have a problem with the president renominating somebody who shares her philosophy. This is more of we've got an election year, and just trying to avoid the election year politics.
One further question, if I might, Mr. Chairman. I take it you have great respect for the Senator Johnny Isakson, and you wanted to tell him that we were supporting his public statements with regard to the nomination process, if I heard you correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you also think that we should support Johnny Isakson's public statements about the fact that the so-called religious liberty bill should be left to the federal government?
Well, I do have great respect for Senator Isakson. It certainly comes from the county you and I both represent. However, as it relates specifically to the issue that I've worked on, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, the Supreme Court in 1997 ruled that it did not apply to the states, and so I don't know that the senator is fully up to speed on the fact that the United States Supreme Court has specifically stated that if states want to have that protection for their citizens, they need to pass a state version of that.
All right. Ms. Oliver.
Would you be open to an amendment, sir, that urges Senator Isakson and particularly Senator Perdue, or we could only urge Senator Perdue, to accept the nomination of Judge Dax Lopez for the federal bench in the Northern District of Georgia? Member of the Federal Society, member of the Republican Party, that Senator Perdue has chosen not to support. Would you be open to that amendment urging them to support Dax Lopez?
That gets into a different judicial matter. I would not.
Wouldn't it be a similar judicial matter, is that these are discretionary acts in a very complicated political and substantive legal process, and that I don't agree with the decisions that Senator Perdue and particularly Senator Perdue has made on Dax Lopez, so why shouldn't I urge him to support Dax Lopez in a similar way you're urging them to not support anybody else?
Well, I certainly wouldn't encourage you, Representative, not to pursue that as a separate matter. I think if you want to pursue that as a separate matter, I think that's a good idea.
I'll call another meeting for you if you'd like to. Mr. Welch. The question's been called. Is there objection? There be no objection, that matter will go forward as a call the question. Is there a motion on the resolution? Motion is due pass. Further discussion on the motion? Did you want to have a discussion on the motion, Mr. Bennett, or?
Oh, no, I have a question.
You have a question? All right.
I don't know if we're past that.
I think we're past that point since we called the question. The motion is a due pass on Resolution 1612 as a substitute. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. The chair will call for division of the House. All in favor, raise your right hand for an account. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed. 1, 2, 3. The motion does carry. That will conclude the business for the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to recognize Judge Goff. I'm sorry, Judge. I forgot to note that you are here with us today, and always a pleasure to see you and have you with us. All the way from Albany.
Yes, sir.
Well, have a sandwich with us. Enjoy lunch.